I'm Kenny Collins. You're listening to Supper Time Stew. And right now we have a special guest on the line. Arguably the hardest working man in the music business from Gov't Mule and the Allman Brothers Band, Warren Haynes. How you doing, Warren?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It is a pleasure to have you on the line tonight.
My pleasure.
We've solicited questions from our listeners through MySpace and through email. And first I'll ask the question all the Allman Brothers fans want an answer to. How's Gregg doing?
Gregg's doing great. He's doing really great. And we're going to go back to work in August and he'll theoretically be in tip-top shape.
Fantastic. I think everybody's happy to hear that.
Absolutely.
And the question everybody else wants to know, too. How's Warren Haynes doing?
I'm doing wonderful. No complaints.
Fantastic. The road isn't beating you up too bad, huh?
I've actually had more time off this year, starting after Thanksgiving, but mostly January, February, March, than I've had probably in 10 years. So it's been quite nice.
A little bit of rest can do us all some good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So listen, I've been going to the New Year's Eve shows for the last couple of years, and the Winter of Love, Mule a Go-Go, Dub Side of the Mule. How do you come up with the themes for the Gov't Mule New Year's Eve shows?
Well, there's a group of us that just throw out ideas and see if we can come up with something that makes sense, that we think we could pull off, that would be unexpected and, fit into kind of the overall picture of what Gov't Mule is all about. It takes a lot of work, and we start preparing way in advance, but it's worth it. Those shows end up being some of the highlights of the year.
Are you guys already thinking about what you might do on New Year's Eve this year coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little premature, but we've started thinking about it, but we haven't really come up with anything concrete yet.
I'm just curious, this past New Year's Eve, you had a DJ on stage from radio station WCOS. Was that Joey Arkenstadt?
It was a guy named Stephen Payne, who is an actor, and we hired him to be the DJ for the evening. He wasn't really a DJ, and there really is no WCOS.
Yeah, well, everybody's still looking for Joey Arkenstadt.
Joey's a hard man to pin down.
Yes, he is. Let's see, what else do we have here? Many people are obviously familiar with your work with the Allman Brothers Band and Gov't Mule, but could you tell us briefly about your involvement with Evil Teen Records, Hardhead Management, and the charitable organizations that you're involved with?
Well, let's start with Evil Teen. Evil Teen is a label that was originally founded by my wife, Stephanie Scamardo, and then a few years ago it had kind of gone a little dormant. There was not a lot going on, and we decided to kind of relaunch it, and I got more involved with it at that point as an opportunity to put out music that we have in the can that doesn't necessarily qualify as a major label release, starting with a lot of the charity stuff, like the Christmas Jam show that I do in Asheville, North Carolina every year. This coming one is going to be the 20th anniversary.
Congratulations.
We put out 2 CDs, which would be Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the benefit concert. We're about to skip ahead to Volume 8, which will be the first DVD, which is from 2 years ago with Dave Matthews and Taj Mahal and Branford Marsalis and Gov't Mule and Marty Stewart and the New Orleans Social Club and John Popper Project with DJ Logic. It was a wonderful show, and we put the highlights out. The proceeds for all that stuff go to Habitat for Humanity. The ticket sales, the merchandise sales, the DVD sales, everything goes to Habitat. Hardhead Management is my wife Stephanie's company that she founded many, many years ago. When we first met, she was in the music business and I was in the music business, but at the time we kind of agreed to not work together, which we kind of honored that agreement up until when Gov't Mule was founded in late '94, and I had my own manager, and Alan Woody and Matt Epps inherited my manager, so to speak, and they were unhappy with the management situation, and kind of came to me and said, we would really like it if your wife became our manager. What would you think about that? And of course, my reaction was, well, she would do a great job, but it would put me in the position of never being able to fire her. But we started that relationship, and it's worked out ever since. You know, Hardhead works also with a lot of other artists and bands. Ivan Neville, John Popper from Blues Traveler. They managed Chris Robinson when he was doing his solo career outside of the Black Crowes. The Living Color, and been a lot of wonderful musicians and artists, DJ Logic. And we touched on the charity thing for a minute. You know, most of the charity stuff that we do, although not all of it, but most of it is affiliated with Habitat for Humanity.
And I commend you for your work with the charitable organizations you work with. It's a fantastic thing you do. Now, after Alan Woody, your original bassist in Gov't Mule, passed away in 2000, one of the ways you and the band coped with moving on was to bring in a host of bass players to sit in with you. And as a result, you've earned a reputation as the king of special guests. Outside of your fellow band members, which musicians have you most enjoyed sharing the stage with, and why?
Well, that's a tough question. I mean, me individually, there would be one group of answers. Gov't Mule would be another group of answers. I've been lucky throughout my career to have been able to play with a lot of my heroes, including Bob Dylan and Willie Dixon and John Lee Hooker. Both of those guys, which are no longer with us. Albert Collins, who was one of my guitar heroes, and most of the guitar players that I grew up listening to, with very few exceptions, I've at one point or another been able to at least spend some time working or playing with them, which has been amazing. So it's really hard to say. I mean, of course, I've loved working with John Schofield, working with Little Milton, who is another person who's no longer with us. It's just a really long list of people that I'm honored to have been associated with.
Now, Andy Hess, he seems to be real comfortable in his muleskins now. How did you guys settle on Andy as your bass player?
Well, we went through a long process of playing with a lot of different bass players. There were certain ones that deserved the credit for keeping our band alive, specifically Oteil Burbridge, George Porter Jr., Jason Newstead, Dave Schools, Greg Arzab, Mike Gordon. These were all people that went on the road with us during a time when we weren't sure what the future held for Gov't Mule. And there was a time when we would take three different bass players on the bus and divide up the repertoire three ways and let each of them learn a third of it, so nobody would have to be fighting the task of learning all this material. And at one point, Andy was one of those three bass players and doing a wonderful job. And so there was one gig that we did outdoors in New Jersey, outside of the Stone Pony, and it was the only gig at that time where we just used one bass player instead of three, because it was like a one-off gig that we were all just coming in to do. And we asked Andy to do it, and he did an excellent job. And I think at that point we kind of all realized that it was starting to sound like a real band again. There were always amazing musical highlights with all the guests that we worked with, but it takes a long time to allow the chemistry to develop to the point that you can compare it to where we were with Alan Woody after 7 years. So at that point forward, it was a matter of saying, hey, let's see if Andy wants